And we're live. Hello, book lovers. Welcome to the holiday edition of Authors Love Bookstores presented by A Mighty Blaze. My name is Kimberly Hensle-Lowrance, and I am here today with the one and only
Joe Moldover.
my co-host and partner in crime. This is our special holiday edition. We're going to be talking books for the holidays. And in case this is your first time joining us, just a little bit of background on A Mighty Blaze. A Mighty Blaze is a volunteer effort of writers and creatives who love books and storytelling and authors and bookstores. We work to bring attention to these essential parts of our culture during COVID-19 and beyond. So usually each week we talk with an independent bookstore about what they do, why they're important, what they bring to their community, and we have that conversation in conjunction with an author. Today's episode is a little different. It's Joe and I talking about books we love that we want to recommend to you as you undertake your holiday gift giving. If you're watching us live on Facebook, feel free to post a question below the broadcast, and we will try to get to those later on. And we will be recording this and posting it live to YouTube so you can watch it later. Subscribe to A Mighty Blaze on YouTube so you can catch all of our shows. So, we have a lot of books to talk about.
We have a lot of books to talk about. I'm sitting here with a pile of books on the desk in front of me, Kimberly. So do you want to go first or should I?
I have a really big pile as well.
That is impressive. Possibly not as impressive as this, but ladies first, why don't you please go ahead? Why don't we start off with fiction, because you and I are both fiction writers,
Yeah.
and I know that we have books from a couple of different genres we want to be able to tell the audience about. We want to talk about fiction, we want to talk about memoir, we want to talk about nonfiction. We don't want to neglect short stories within the fiction category, so there are a lot of bases to touch. We shall not neglect YA, for sure. But I will let you lead off. Tell me about the fiction book that you would like to recommend to our audience.
Well, I should say that I should confess something. I am a very greedy reader. I love books and I read a lot. And choosing just one or two books to recommend, I can't do it. So I have a lot that I've read this year that I really like. But I can't recommend all of them. We'd be here forever. So I try to recommend books that I either purchased for someone for Christmas this year, purchased for myself on behalf of my husband to give to me for Christmas. Or maybe it was just an amazing book and I really needed to talk about it. So kind of all over the place. So one of the first books I want to recommend is Writers and Lovers by Lily King. We had her on the show. I love this book. It's one of my favorite books of the year. It's on all the best of lists that you're seeing. And it's terrific. It's really a wonderful book. It's so beautifully written. I highly recommend it. A perfect gift for the person in your life who likes literary fiction. It's a coming of age story. It's more than that though. Yeah, I'm not doing a very good job.
That sounds great.
I loved it. We had her on the show. Absolutely fantastic. Okay.
Sounds great. Where should people go to buy it?
Oh, excellent. So below we're going to post, thank you, Joe. Below, our colleague and friend Trisha is posting links for us below, and she'll post a link both to an independent bookstore where you can purchase this directly, and we've also put together a bookshop.org page of all the recommendations we're going to share today. Yeah. So they'll be below. Check it out.
And the bookshop.org allows you to buy from an independent bookseller. Yeah. Writers and Lovers, thank you.
Okay, Joe, what do you have?
So one completely non-controversial point is that 2020 has been a terrible year. Like, this year has just been the worst. And I mean, nobody's going to argue with me. And so when we have booksellers and we have authors on the show, you know that oftentimes what we ask them is, what do people want to read? Like, what do people want to buy? What do people want to read right now to deal with this reality that is around all of us? And a lot of people talk about wanting something that will both have a lot of literary value and be well written and be sort of beautifully crafted, but that is also an escape, something that is exciting, something that is taking you to another world, something that's taking you to another environment. And so, to help those people, I have brought you this, Into the Jungle
Ooh.
by the writer Erica Forensic. So, this is a book that is a little bit defiant of genre connections. It is a thriller, but it is a literary thriller. It is written by an author who has huge literary bona fides, and it is beautifully written. The characters are incredibly well developed. It is a story that follows a young woman into the Bolivian Amazon on an adventure in pursuit of love, and it turns into a fight for her life. It is extremely exciting. It is extremely compelling. It is a visit to the world that most of us never get to see. It is
Mm.
exposure therapy for somebody like me who hates snakes. Um, it is just a fabulous, fabulous book, out in paperback this year. If you like it, you should get her prior book, The River at Night. And if you really, really, really like it, she's got another book coming out soon. She was on the program earlier this year for Wellesley Books. She's fabulous. It's fabulous. Into the Jungle.
Excellent. Um, so for Christmas, my husband is giving me this. He doesn't know it, but he's giving me. You're going to hear that a couple of times. It's how I have managed my book obsession. It's called The Shadow King. It's by Maza Megasti. I apologize. I know I have just mispronounced her last name. Believe it was long. It's been long listed for all of the prizes. It's about the Ethiopian, um, uh, the Italian invasion of Ethiopia in the 1930s. It's supposed to be fantastic. I can't wait to read it. This will be what I will be reading the week after Christmas.
Hmm.
I'm
Fabulous.
really looking forward to it. It's gotten a lot of accolades. I can't wait.
Very nice. I don't know if your husband watches, but that'll be a news flash for him that that's what he's getting you.
Oh, don't worry. I'll probably end up wrapping it for myself as well. Full service over here.
Okay, so one of the hardest things about being a writer, as you know, is coming up with a title for a book.
Mm-hmm.
Fun fact, I've been working on a book for over a year. Kimberly, you know this because you have helped to critique and develop the book. And a book with the title that I've given my book just came out. So yeah, I know, it's fine. It's fine. I'll come up with another one. Here's the point. The point is that titling books is an extremely difficult thing to do. And I'm going to give you a book now with a unique title. This is The Patricide of George Benjamin Hill by James Charlesworth. What is it about? It is about the patricide of George Benjamin Hill. This is a book about a man's adult children who decide that they must kill him. George Benjamin Hill is sort of a wealthy tycoon based on Ray Kroc, the founder of McDonald's. He lives in the middle of the country, and his adult children have some very serious grievances against him. And over the course of the book, they travel from the four corners of the country, Alaska, Las Vegas, Florida, New York. They travel all together, converging on the center of America in order to kill their father. Um,
Huh.
by the way, I have four kids of my own, and I don't recommend this as like a how-to type of a book. But this book tells the story of why this has happened, what has happened in this family, what has happened to these children, who is George Benjamin Hill, why do they want to kill him, and do they wind up doing it? It is, again, extremely well written. It takes you across the country, all the way from the Alaskan oil fields to the New York Yankees to Florida to Vegas.
Hmm.
It is exciting. It's very literary. It's a fabulous read. So I recommend that strongly.
Wow, I have so much to say about that. I mean, I can feel confident that I have not recommended a book where someone tries to kill their father, but you know,
It's a classic trope.
yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. Joe, thanks. um, Earlier this year, we had Margaret Wilkerson Sexton on the program, and she has two books. This is A Kind of Freedom, and her other book is called The Revisioners. Some of the best books I've read this year. Books that stay with you. I think about these books from time to time and the characters, which I don't always do, and I read a lot. So when a character and a story stays with me, that's a real testament to the author. Her writing is beautiful. I highly recommend Margaret Wilkerson Sexton. Okay, any more murder?
Well, I not well. I don't want to give too much away. There's a book that I do want to talk about as a recommendation, a fiction recommendation, and we're directing everybody, as you know, to our bookshop.org link, which should be popping up in the browser. I all in the Facebook feed.
Yep, it's
Um,
there.
I also, for this book, want to give just a particular shout out to a bookstore that we interviewed this year. This is, I believe, the largest mystery bookstore in the country. It is located in Texas. It is Murder by the Book. Awesome store. Of all the stores we interviewed, this is at the top of the list of the places I want to go. So go to murderbooks.com if you want to pick up a murder mystery from them. Here's the book I want to talk about. The book I love mystery novels. The book that I want to talk about is a little bit different. And I know this is one that you know, Kimberly. This is Everything I Never Told You by
Okay.
Celeste Ng. So many people are familiar with Celeste Ng's book, with her books. Her second book, Little Fires Everywhere, was out this year. It's a Netflix series with Reese Witherspoon, so it was hard to miss. Um, Celeste Ng's debut novel was Everything I Never Told You, which is justifiably well known in its own right. And Everything I Never Told You begins with an incredible hook. Everything I Never Told You begins with a family waking up in their house one morning and finding that their high school age daughter is missing and her bed has not been slept in. And by the end of the first chapter, we find that her body has been found in the lake down the street from the house. And the question is why and how and what happened. And so I am not going to tell the audience whether it is a murder mystery, because we don't know for sure that it's a murder, but it is a beautiful book. And the thing that I love about this book, and actually, Kimberly, this book makes me think of your writing, because this book is a mystery wrapped around a family drama. This book is about so much. It's about parents and children. It's about married couples. It is about race in America and about class. It's about so much. And then the shell that wraps around it is this incredible mystery about what happened to the daughter.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but you do find out at the end.
Yeah, that's a great book. I recommend that. I also recommend The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. This has been on all the lists, and again, very deservedly so. It's a story of two sisters, African American sisters, who break apart from one another, and one of whom goes on to live her life disguised as a white woman. And the burden of making that choice, the estrangement from her family, and then what the other sister's life is like when she returns home to their small town in the South. Britt Bennett's writing is extraordinary. Her first book, The Mothers, was also fantastic. Another recommendation if you haven't read that, or if the person you want to buy a book for has already read The Vanishing Half, then get them The Mothers. But fantastic book. Highly recommend it. Really, really wonderful.
Awesome. That looks great.
Her writing is just fantastic.
Kimberly, can I do another fiction book, or you're the timekeeper? Or are you going to nudge me onto a different category?
No, let's go. I have more fiction.
You want to talk more fiction?
Yeah, let's keep going.
I want to talk.
We'll get to. We have kids and memoir and nonfiction. We'll get to that, but.
Well, I'm going to talk about kids actually for a second, because the book that I want to talk about is a classic that I read for the first time this year, but has been around for a very long time. The book is Jacob Have I Loved by Catherine Patterson. And Catherine Patterson is a two-time Newbery Award winner, and she is best known as the author of Bridge to Terabithia. But she has also written a number of other books, including Jacob Have I Loved, which is from the biblical phrase, Jacob have I loved, Esau have I hated. And this is a book that is theoretically for a youth audience, but it is just a perfect example of how a book for young people isn't really for young people. It is for readers of all ages. I love this book. This book is a family drama that tells the story of two sisters, fraternal twins, and their life together on a small island off the coast of North Carolina, their relationship, their family, the community they live in, the way that they grow up and find a place in the world and grow old. It is a beautiful, beautiful book. It has so much to say about life and about family and about aging. And I recommend it for, I mean, definitely for kids and teenagers, but also for adults. It's perfect for everybody.
I'll have to check that out. I'm gonna throw a curveball right now. I'm gonna mention a book that we originally did not put on our list, so I apologize to Trisha who's in there looking for links. Sue Monk Kids, The Book of Longings. So I finished this book 2 nights ago, sobbing, and that it does not happen to me. I mean, I can probably count on one hand the number of times I cry when I read a book. And there was something about this book at this point in my life. I don't know, but it is the fictional story of the wife of Jesus. So she's imagined a world where Jesus was married, and what was the life of his wife? What was it like? Who was she? And the woman she creates, Anna, is bright and talented, a writer, a thinker, and it very much focuses on Jesus's humanity. So, and it's written, it's fiction. It's not a Bible story, but though it is very much rooted in exquisite research, like fantastic writing. It's really one of those books that you're so immersed in it, it feels like it's alive. I loved it. So I think and I read it because my book club, it's our book this month. We're discussing it next week. So definitely a perfect book for discussion, a perfect book for somebody who likes to immerse themselves in a good story, a thoughtful story, and just, again, beautifully written. So The Book of Longings.
That's fabulous.
Yeah, I mean, like, page 375. Like hyperventilating. I don't know. I didn't expect it. It was really, it's good.
Oh my God, that's a recommendation. Okay, that is awesome. Hey, I want to give a shout out to a debut novel that came out this year that I feel like I have not heard enough about. But you mentioned your book club. This is a book that my book club covered, and I completely fell in love with it. And the book is called Boy Swallows Universe. And if I was more organized, I would have it here with me to hold up. But it's Boy Swallows Universe by Trent Dalton. You can go to the bookshop.org link to get it. The bookstore that introduced me to it through its book club was Wellesley Books. So it might be karmically proper for readers to head over to the Wellesley Books website and to pick up a copy as well. Trent Dalton is an Australian writer. He's an Australian magazine writer and nonfiction writer, and this was his first novel. I don't know if I can really tell you what it's about. It is about too many things. It is about the heroin industry and the heroin trade in Australia. It is about two brothers, one of whom has selective mutism. It is about a family that is trying to hold itself together in the midst of horrible circumstances. And despite all of that, it is an extremely funny, sweet, charming book. It is one of these books that deals with the most kind of like horrific horrific events and images that you can imagine. I mean, I don't want to give too much away, but at one point there are body parts in jars of formaldehyde. Like it's like a dark book. But there's also a beautiful love story at the heart of it. There is wonderful family relationships to the part of it. It's incredibly sweet in following the young protagonist. And there are times when it's laugh out loud funny. So that is an amazing trick on the part of Trent Dalton. And that book was a fabulous discovery for me this year, Boy Swallows Universe.
I feel like there's so much to unpack about our choices. Body parts and formaldehyde and patricide. Recommender over there.
It's been a long year.
So a couple of months ago, we had Sonali Dev on the show. She's a romance writer. She writes these great books where she takes Jane Austen stories and adapts them for modern. We actually also had Uzma Jaludian on, who does the same thing. And after we were over, I in the green room, I made a confession to Sonali that I don't like Jane Austen, and she's never, it's never worked. And she did seem a little offended. No, actually, she was lovely. But I said, I have a daughter, and I want to introduce her to Jane Austen. Where should I start? And she recommended that I start with Emma. So I got my daughter Emma for Christmas. She might be a little young for it, but this will be our goal for 2021, for her to discover Jane Austen and for me to see if I can try to like Jane Austen. But I think this is just a reminder to all of us that we talk a lot about current books, but sometimes giving someone a classic like Jane Austen or Charles Dickens, or something that you grew up with, is also a great way to introduce especially kids to a new story, because you never know, if they read it on their own as opposed to as an assignment in English class, they might actually like it a little bit better. So my 2021 goal, will I like Jane Austen?
We'll find out.
We'll find out.
Awesome. That's quite a confession. We're talking about all of these novels, but we have to acknowledge that novels are not the only form of fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like just to give a shout out to a book of short stories that I would like to recommend. This is The Dogs of Detroit by the writer Brad Felver. This was the winner of the Drew Hines Literature Prize, which is a very prestigious literary prize for short story. It's just a fabulous set of short stories that I would describe as literary but gritty. It follows a lot of tough working class characters, a lot of people who are dealing with physical and emotional suffering, a lot of people who are dealing with physical violence, but it does it in a very thoughtful, compassionate way. And it's beautifully, beautifully written. I met Brad Felver. I met him at Greenlight Books in Brooklyn, New York. And so continuing with our effort to try to distribute some karma, if anybody is interested in picking up some great short stories in Dogs of Detroit, you can go to our bookshop.org link, but you could also go to greenlightbookstore.com and pick up a copy. Greenlight Bookstore has been on with us this year. It's a fabulous, fabulous bookstore with a couple of locations in Brooklyn. And Brad and I got to hang out there once, and it would be a great place to buy his book.
I also have two short story collections I want to recommend. One is I Hold a Wolf by the Ears by Laura Vandenberg. It's fantastic. I actually found it to be something that was like perfect to read one story at night before I went to bed, calming, that makes you think. Her writing is really inventive and beautiful. It's been on a lot of the best of lists, and again, another book that really should be there. And then a book that I've asked for Christmas, The Secret Lives of Church Ladies by Disha Filya. Also a series of linked stories. Well, it is a series of linked stories, and has gotten a lot of buzz and is supposed to be terrific. So I'm looking forward to reading that as well.
That's fabulous. We should probably move on from fiction, but I know, I was about to say, before we do, all right, I have two more. All right, so go for it. Yeah,
I have two more that my husband will be giving me for Christmas. It's good he doesn't watch the show. How Much of These Hills Are Gold by C. Pam Zhang, and Leave the World Behind by Rumaan Alam. We actually had him on A Mighty Blaze a couple of weeks ago. I believe Jane Roper had him on for the Thursday conversations. Both of these books, literary fiction, great buzz. I know, again, I will be reading. These are going on my post-Christmas, cuddle up under a blanket, hopefully watch the snowfall, and read fabulous books. So recommend those. Okay.
That looks great. I love that you know what you're getting for Christmas. Like I feel like I should have some sort of like matching Hanukkah story. Like, this is a book that I will find by the menorah. But I don't know. I don't have that kind of insight. Two final fiction books I want to recommend. The History of Living Forever by Jake Wolf. So even first of all, even if you don't read this book, just follow Jake Wolf on Twitter because the guy is hilarious. So that's just one plug. History of Living Forever was his debut novel, and again, one that I don't quite know how to describe. It is a globe-trotting novel. It's an adventure novel. It's a love story. It is about the search for a elixir that will grant eternal life,
Ooh.
which is a timeless theme, literally. Haha. And that was my dad joke for the broadcast. But The History of Living Forever, a great novel I want to plug. And then finally, Kimberly, I feel like it's appropriate for this to be our maybe our last novel entry because we haven't talked a lot about historical fiction.
Oh yes.
So your friend and mine, Whitney Scherer, Age of Light, did not come
Absolutely.
out this year, it came out last year.
But it came out
Uh,
paperback this year.
It was that this year? Yeah. Okay.
Hmm.
So available in paperback. I have my signed hard copy right here.
Hmm.
Um, The Age of Light is a historical novel set largely in Paris in the 19, help me, Kimberly, 20s through 40s.
It's pre World War II.
Yeah, it's a fabulous, fabulous look at sort of that period of time in France, in Europe, the arts, sort of avant-garde art scene, the run up to World War II. It is, and it's beautifully written and a fabulous piece of historical
Yeah,
fiction.
it's terrific. I highly recommend it. I gave that out to people last year for Christmas.
Me too.
Yeah,
Um,
excellent.
awesome. So those are our fiction recommendations.
I mean, honestly, I have more, but
I mean, I have more too, and we've kind of like given short shrift to YA for one thing,
let's
but
let's move on, and then if there's time, we can come back to the other.
let's
I'm
do it.
tracking the. I'm going through the list.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Tell me what to do.
Um, can we talk? Let's talk middle grade real quick. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Um, so I have middle grade readers in my home. Well, I have a middle grade reader who also is reading Stephen King, so that's a whole other conversation. But I want to recommend. I also have nephews who are in that area, and so a couple of the books that I have in my go-to books this year. Jason Reynolds writes this wonderful series. This one, the first one's called Ghost. It's about running. In fact, he writes a number of wonderful books that are really important. And I'd recommend him if you have a kid who's in middle school or in high school. He's definitely, definitely Jason Reynolds. And this particular series, I know my nephews love and my kids do as well. Another classic middle grade book that my kids and I actually read together this summer is The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. And then actually my daughter's been studying it in English class this year. So it's been really interesting to have read it for fun and then to have the analysis. This is a seminal writing about a young Mexican-American girl, about the sense of place. The writing is beautiful. And it's not a particularly long book, so it's also a nice way to, it's a doable book to read with your child if you have a kid who's a reluctant reader or if you just want to experience a really important story together. I know we read this and did a lot of stopping and discussing, like, what does this mean? What do you think about this? And had really good conversations, and that's kind of one of my favorite things. So I recommend The House on Mango Street. And then, okay, I know. And then another one I want to recommend is Brown Girl Dreaming by Jacqueline Woodson. She is an amazing writer. She's a poet also, and her adult fiction is lyrical and gorgeous. And this is a book that my daughter and I have on our to read list for the next couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Fabulous. Fabulous.
Okay.
I don't know if I really have any great middle grade recommendations. I mean, Jacob Have I Loved would be a good middle grade book. I wondered if I might mention a YA book, or is that breaking from theme? Because
No,
I was gonna say
they're kind
something.
of the same mix. There's a lot of overlap. Go for it.
Yeah, I was gonna say something about Don't Ask Me Where I'm From,
Jen
um,
DeLeon.
by our friend Jen DeLeon. I don't. My copy is not in front of me. Do you have a copy you can hold up?
No, it's in the other room.
Oh, mine's in the
It's
other
on
room
my
too.
bedside table.
It's also on my bedside table. It is a beautiful cover. Don't Ask Me Where I'm From is the story of first generation American Latinx teenager named Liliana Cruz, who participates in Boston's Medco program. And for people who aren't from around here, the Medco program is a long-standing program in Eastern Massachusetts that involves busing students from inner city Boston out to high schools in the suburbs where they may find more academic opportunities. And Liliana is a student in this program, and it tells her story and talks about her journey towards identity, about her discovery of the race and the class conflicts that are part of that dynamic. And it is Jen DeLeon's debut novel, although not her last. There are more forthcoming. And it's a beautiful book, a great YA book, something that's very timely and will generate a lot of conversation about race and class.
Yeah. Plus, Jenna's fantastic. Yeah. And so it's just, as are all of the writers. Yes. We know Jen, so we're excited for her. Another go-to choice for books in my house, because I have teenagers and teenage nephews, is graphic novels. And specifically, like, these are all the Black Panther graphic novels these are all written by Ta-Nehisi Coates. And my nephews are getting actually, these might be for my son. Oops, these are for my son. And, but I did send some to my nephews as well. And, you know, I had a couple of years ago, I had a concern that my kids were only reading graphic novels, and was that going to stymie their interest in reading? And I had a really wonderful conversation with the literary specialist at their school, who talked about the fact that you want your kids to read. If it's a cereal box, if it's a, you know, a novel, it doesn't matter, as long as they love to read and they're open to reading. And so if your child's really into graphic novels, that's awesome. It's a great way to immerse yourself in a story, and we should celebrate that. And the graphic novels have become so much more sophisticated and engaging, and so that's a big thing in our house. We recommend that. Another recommendation that I have is, my daughter's getting this for Christmas. This is the third Rebel Girls books, Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls. This one's 100 Immigrant Women Who Changed the World. It's this wonderful book where it's a picture of a woman and who is noteworthy in some way in her biography. And my daughter's really into realistic fiction, and these books are terrific for young readers who can read them together, or for girls and boys who one can read on their own. So highly recommend those.
Fabulous. Where are we going next? Should we venture into the world of memoir? Oh, no, I'm not. I'm cutting you off.
One more.
You're unstoppable.
I'm unstoppable. One more is also a book that my son's getting for Christmas, is Ready Player 2, which is the sequel to Ready Player 1, which was made into this movie by Steven Spielberg. I know I'm not the only one who pre-ordered it. I was at Belmont Books the day it was released to pick up a copy. 2 copies, actually. I sent one to my nephews. This has been highly anticipated, and I know that my son will be reading this Christmas morning.
Awesome. We're getting all of your families.
We're getting everything.
All of the secret presents.
Okay, one other graphic novel series I want to recommend, and you can see that's when it's kind of falling apart, is Usagi. And we're going to put the link below. And this is a graphic novel about a rabbit samurai. And I know, but there are these volumes, there's about 8 of them, and there's also smaller books. My kids are obsessed. And, you know, I'm the kind of person who likes my books to be pristine, but I also take great pride when they're kind of falling apart as well, because it means they're really, really loved. So these are good to try. You can get them on bookshop.org or any of the bookstores we're talking about. Your library probably has them. Okay.
That's awesome. That is a diverse range of books.
I know.
Well done on your part.
Thank you. Okay, what's next? You want to do memoir or nonfiction?
Let's do some memoir. Let's talk about some memoir.
Okay. You're up.
I will lead off. So we are not a music program, for good reason, because I am not very musical. But my favorite album of the year, I just learned from Spotify's synthesis of my listening habits for this year, was the album Hollywood Park by the band The Airborne Toxic Event. And Airborne Toxic Event is a great band. They've been around for a long time. They have the most literary name of any band. You might recognize the name is borrowed from White Noise by Don DeLillo. And the front man, I'll just keep going. The front man, the lead singer for Airborne Toxic Event is Michael Jolet. And in conjunction with the album, he also released his memoir, which is
Oh.
also called Hollywood Park. And Michael Jolet, in addition to being a writer and a singer and a musician and a songwriter and a great performer, has an amazing life story, beginning with his experience of being born into a cult that his parents had joined in California, the famous Synanon cult, which was quite an experience. And his memoir tells that story. It tells the story of escaping from the cult, of trying to survive while on the run from the cult, of growing up, of breaking out of the life that he was trapped in with a scholarship to Stanford University, and then ultimately of finding himself as an artist and of dealing with the trauma that came from those early years. So, fantastic memoir. It came out this year. You can read it. You can listen to the album at the same time. Hollywood Park.
Uh, I would like to recommend a YA novel that is behind you on the shelf. And this is your book, Every Moment After.
Never heard of
Um,
it.
you never heard of it? I actually just bought this from my goddaughter for Christmas. And it's a really important story about a community about a decade after a school shooting. And the author does, I think, a terrific job showing the different ways people grieve and move on, and the burdens we carry and the way we are changed by such a traumatic event. It's really worth reading. I highly recommend it. And it was a joy to order it and give it to a family member.
Thank you. That's very nice. Thank you
You can
very
see it
much.
behind Joe. Uh,
Awesome. Thank you.
you're welcome. It's true. Another book, and now we're jumping around a little bit, but
Go for it.
another book that just a kid's book I want to recommend. I have a nephew, he's 4, and I got him this book, Cozy by Jan Brett. Jan Brett is a Massachusetts-based writer and illustrator. She does these unbelievably gorgeous picture books for kids. She usually does a sort of wintry holiday theme book, and I know that I've been buying these for my kids over the years, and they're the kind of books that we'll keep to pass on. They're beautifully illustrated, really lovely stories, a great, great gift. Jan Brett.
Fabulous. I am going to go ahead. If we're jumping around, I'm going to go ahead and jump around. And I am going to recommend a brick of a book. Yes, thank you for the dance. I'm going to recommend a brick of a book. This is not a new book. This is a book that has also been out since at least last year. But for anybody on your list who really loves nonfiction, Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari is an amazing book. And this is a book that falls into that category of the story of everything. This is, if you have somebody on your list who loved Guns, Germs, and Steel, for example, by Jared Diamond, this is the book for that person. This is the book that tells the story of humanity from 30,000 feet, that talks about the evolution of humans, of groups of humans, of agriculture, of industry, of everything. It's sort of the story of everything and how it all fits together. And it's just a really, really kind of fascinating, satisfying read. There's so much packed into it. I read it cover to cover. I thought it was fabulous. And so, and it is out in paperback now, so you don't have to buy like the 10-pound version that I'm holding here. So Sapiens, fantastic choice for anybody who likes nonfiction, who likes history, who likes science on your list.
Another good recommendation, if you have someone in your life who likes nonfiction, is interested in science, is Hidden Valley Road by Robert Kolker. I think we've mentioned this book on the show before. I know I've seen it on a number of end of the year best of lists. It's a really fantastic book following a family that had 9 children, and I believe 5 of them were diagnosed with schizophrenia. And so it's a family story of what it's like to live with that, the mental illness that impacts so many of the sons in the family, the consequences on the rest of the family, and then also the scientists who study the family in an effort to try to understand schizophrenia by focusing in on this one family cluster. It's a story of resilience. It's very sad. I'm not going to, hide that, but it really is a story about the resilience of the family members, the commitment of the scientists. I love reading about science like that, the way it's kind of explained to you in this really humanistic way. And I think it's done extraordinarily well. So that's a great choice. I don't have a copy in front of me, but that's something I recommend.
That's a great pitch.
Good book.
Why don't we hit a couple of other memoirs before we go out, Kimberly? Because I was going to say something about The Fact of a Body, and then I don't know if you would like to say something about The Body Papers. Would that be a good
I didn't
one?
bring my copy. I thought do you have your...
Yeah, my copy's downstairs. I know, we're both so bad.
Yeah, The Body Papers by Grace Toulousan. It's a so beautifully written. We both know Grace, and I think I can speak for both of us in saying we're complete fans of her work. It's a very searing and intimate story about family and abuse and resilience, and it's a very important read and really quite lovely, and I definitely recommend that.
It's beautifully written. Grace Taliesin is one of those people who makes me really jealous as a writer every time I read her, because of how beautifully she writes. I will follow up on that, Kimberly, with The Fact of a Body by Alex Marzano-Lesnevich. And Alex Marzano-Lesnevich is a professor at Bowdoin College now, and just won, I think, a fairly prestigious literary award in Maine. Also, fun fact, went to high school with me. I know. And The Fact of a Body, I believe, was Alex's debut book. It is a memoir. It is a combination story. Alex, in addition to being an English professor, is also an attorney. They were always an overachiever. And it is partly a story about their work on a death penalty case. And it is partly a story about their own family and about the trauma and the secrets in their own family. So the way that you describe The Body Papers would also describe The Fact of a Body. It is searing. It is dark at parts, but it is also beautifully written by a wonderful and really brilliant and insightful author, contemporary author. So Fact of a Body, Alex Marzano-Lesnevich, a tremendous book.
You may be watching us thinking this is still overwhelming, right? You still need to get a book for someone and you're really not sure with all of the information we're giving you what the right choice is. I want to recommend the Best American series. So these are a number of books. This is the best of science and nature writing. They'll do a short story version, a travel writing. They come out every November. They're curated by different authors every year. I know that the short story collection this year is curated by Curtis Sittenfeld, who wrote Rodham and American Wife. And they're great if you know someone has an interest. Like, for example, nobody's really traveling in 2020, so maybe you want to get them best of travel writing so we can dream. But it's a great way to give someone a book so they can sort of spend some time in a particular topic that's of interest to them. So this one I got from my mother-in-law, science and nature writing, but there are many others that I recommend. It's a great choice. Yeah, I'm going to do a cookbook now.
Yeah, go for it.
Because I always feel like buying a cookbook, I don't know, feels like luxurious, right? Because you can buy everything online, so why do you need the cookbook? But it's so nice to have the cookbook in your hand. And I'm a huge fan of Pamela Salzman. I follow her on Instagram. I watch her little cooking videos. And her recipes are my go-to. In my family, many of her recipes are in rotation. And she's very accessible and just generally seems like the kind of friend you want to come over and like cook with. And so this is her new book. It came out this year called Quicker Than Quick, and a great recommendation if you're looking to give something new to the chef in your life or the person who wants to be a chef.
Very nice. What do you think? Do we have time for one more each?
Okay.
You do what you want. I've got one more up my sleeve. You go, yeah, you go ahead and do yours. That's great.
I got
Yeah.
5, but you
Okay.
go. You go.
Okay, I'll go. I'll do
Okay.
my last one and then I will hand it back to you, Kimberly. So, um, as I said, 2020 has been awful. And I would love to take us out of the holiday special with a recommendation for a book that is lighthearted and that is funny and that will bring a smile to your face. But I shall not. Uh, because the book that I want to recommend is called Grief Cottage by Gail
Gail
Godwin.
Godwin.
And we had Gail Godwin on this year as one of our first guests,
Hmm.
and she is just extraordinary. Her new book, Old Love Good Girls, came out this year. That is on my bedside table. I've not read it yet. But her prior book is Grief Cottage. And Grief Cottage is the story of a boy who is orphaned after the loss of his mother in a car accident and who goes to live with his great aunt, who is an artist on an island. And it tells the tale of what happens next, of his life on the island, of the relationship with his aunt, and of his discovery of a cottage um, at the farthest reach of the island that is abandoned and falling into the sea, but was the site a generation ago of a terrible tragedy. And his engagement with the ghost, or maybe not, quote, ghost, who still lives in that cottage. It's a story about loss. It's a story about how people move on after loss. It is, I just think, incredibly beautiful and couldn't have been written by anybody who was less wise than Gail Godwin. Um, and so I think that for many of us, as we're wrapping up this year, grief and loss are things that we're thinking about, and you cannot do better than this book to engage with an author who's also had those thoughts.
Hmm. I would like to recommend poetry, which is not my normal go-to genre, but again, I've purchased for myself for Christmas Kate Baer's new book, What Kind of Woman, and is actually back ordered on bookshop.org. So, but I also ordered it for my best friend. And it just came out. It's an instant bestseller and already kind of difficult to get a hold of. But if you can grab a copy, it is very much about being a woman today. And if you're interested in learning more about Kate, she's on Instagram where she shares a lot of her poetry. So Kate Baer. And then, because again, I set this up by saying I am a greedy reader, my friends, so it's hard for me to stop. But I just want to recommend a couple more books I've read this year that I thought were just extraordinary. One of my favorites is Monogamy by Sue Miller. Um, Beautifully written story about a woman whose husband passes away. That's not a secret, and a secret she discovers about him. Just gorgeous. I loved it. Highly recommend it. I also want to recommend Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. It did not come out in 2020. Her other book, The Glass Hotel, I believe came out this year. But I read both of them this year. They're both terrific. But Station 11 is about the world after a flu pandemic hits. I know, right? Like, what was I doing reading that book during a pandemic? But it's much more about the survival and like how the people come together and how their humanity is intact and how they find connection and find one another. And it was like one of those books that every page I could feel my brain kind of exploding. I was like, oh my God, how does she do this? It's just like really extraordinary. Uh, and then another book I really enjoyed that I believe I read at the very beginning of the year is The Other's Gold by Elizabeth Ames. It came out in paperback this year. She's actually local to us here in the Massachusetts area, and it's about 4 friends who meet in college, and it follows them throughout their lives and different mistakes and choices that they make. It's a really terrific book. I think it'd be a great book to give to a friend or a sister, and definitely also great for a book club if you have a book club discussion that you want to get into the nitty gritty of like how female friendship works and the choices we make and burdens of the choices we make. Definitely recommend that. And then, oh my God, am I at the end of my list? I think the only other book that I'm looking forward to reading that I just got a hold of is Shuggie Bain by it's Donald Stewart, right? And it won Douglas Stewart. My apologies, and it just won the Booker Prize.
Yes, it
And
did.
that one, that's on my next of list. I can't wait to read that. I'm going to start that tonight.
Love it. Is that
Oh
it?
my gosh,
There's
is that
nothing
a
else you
lot?
want to say?
I mean, sure, I could keep going.
We ought to wrap up. We ought
We
to
ought to
wrap up,
wrap up.
Kimberly.
I know people are like, this is a lot. Okay, so uh, you may find that this is still a lot, right? And so we want to recommend definitely that you shop local. Independent bookstores are incredible resources for books. You literally can call them up and say, another book. I loved Memorial Drive by Natasha Trethewey. This is a memoir. It's fantastic. Can you recommend something similar? And they can do that for you. So that's a wonderful idea. Another thing you can do, if you have someone in your life who's like me or Joe, who's greedy and loves to read, but a serious reader. A lot of bookstores, for example, Harvard Bookstore in Cambridge, Massachusetts, Parnassus Books in Nashville, Tennessee, have first edition clubs. And that's when you can purchase a year-long membership where every month the store will send them a signed first edition of a book. The booksellers choose the book, so it's a surprise every month, and it's a commitment. It's not, that's 12 books you're buying, 12 hardcover books and shipping. But it's a really nice way to say, I know that you love books, and here's a very special way to honor that. So that's something to consider. Another suggestion is a lot of bookstores are doing membership programs, and they're doing this to help themselves out because they're in financial straits. But also these membership programs give you discounts and also give you exclusive content sometimes. So example, Shakespeare and Company in Paris has a membership program they launched this year or relaunched this year. So if you're looking to give someone something very special, you can give them a membership in a bookstore like that. And then finally, some bookstores, I know Parnassus does this. I know Books and Books at the Studios in Key West, which is the Judy Blume bookstore. They'll do boxes for you. So if you have a new baby in your family, you can call them up and they will assemble a whole box of themed books about ducks and trucks and things like that to take the burden off of choosing for you. So independent bookstores are creative and they're great resources to you as you do your holiday shopping.
Fabulous. Thank you. So, to our viewers, whether you are watching us live or whether you're watching the recording at some point in future time, go buy independent books from your independent bookseller, from bookshop.org. If you have the money, go buy some of these books. If you don't have the money, do it anyway. You don't actually have to eat. Authors Love Bookstores exists to support independent booksellers during the COVID pandemic. Independent booksellers are struggling. This is a difficult time for them. This is a difficult season for them. So we want to do everything we possibly can to support them. We are not done for the year. We have 2 more programs left for this year. We will be here on December 9th with Kathy L. Murphy and Main Street Reads in South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And then our last broadcast of the year will be on December 16th with an author you probably have not heard of called Tom Perrotta with Newtonville Books in Newton, Massachusetts. Tom's a startup author. We're trying to do everything we can to give him a platform because nobody has ever heard of him before. And he's very graciously going to be appearing with us to support Newtonville Books. Each time, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, on Mighty Blaze Facebook, Authors Love Books. Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you. It's been great spending time with you as always. To all of our viewers, current and in the future, thank you. I'm Joe Moldover. This is Kimberly Hensle-Lowrance. Authors Love Bookstores for A Mighty Blaze. We will see you next time. And until then, please stay healthy and keep reading.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.